What up, Vital MTB? Hold on, I got something in my eye. What up, Vital MTBers? Today is a big day in the land of mountain biking because Wheels on Downhill Bikes just got bigger officially for you, the consumer. Trek Bikes announced their new session lineup, and that includes the Session 2.9. You just need $4,999.99, the patience to wait till October, and you can get a frame, a rear shock, and a Fox 40 that's dedicated to the 29-inch wheel size. Trek Session has been a World Cup podium regular for years, and the latest generation features refinements that Trek hopes translates into more speed and more fun. While Trek continues to offer alloy versions of the Session, we're focused on the Carbon 275 and 29 models. The downhill bikes showcase the design features we're used to seeing from the brand. OCLV carbon construction with carbon armor, Minnow Link, ABP, Control Freak internal cable routing, E2 tapered head tube, you get the gist. But the major frame design change this time around is the switch from Trek's full floater suspension design to a fixed lower shock mount. The full floater was originally designed to provide that last bit of extra progression in the travel. The downside of the design was a compromise in stiffness due to the constraints of the parts in motion. By fixing the lower shock mount to the front triangle, Trek was able to add stiffness to the overall suspension system. Trek Suspension Lab also worked with Fox to develop a session-specific tune on the factory Float X2 shock. The metric size shock has a longer stroke, which means a lower leverage ratio, and the new internals in the air shock offer more mid-stroke support and that extra bit of end-stroke progression that the full floater used to provide. The factory Float X2 air shock can be user-tuned with volume spacers. Fox and Trek also went deeper in the tuning tweaks to remove the initial platform the air shock had built in. The platform existed to help with pedaling across a variety of bikes. Trek, however, wanted their Session Float X2 to be pure downhill, and their testing data shows that the modified air shock's performance is better than that of a coil and initial small bump stroke of the travel. When Trek Factory Racing's G. ATHERTON was made aware of the changes, he understood the benefits of the new air shock but still preferred the feel of coil just because that's what he'd been racing for his entire life. Had he not injured himself at the Fort William British downhill race a couple weeks ago, he may have found his way onto the air shock for the World Cup season. For those of you set on coil, don't worry, 225x75 metric coil shocks will fit the new Sessions. The Session Carbon is available in small, medium, large, and extra large sizes. And although things may look like a Session, the bike is longer and more aggressive, which is where downhill race machines are headed. The reach measurement of the Session has been increased by 20 mils, and the bike has dropped thanks to input from the ATHERTONs. The stock head angle on the 27.5 is 63 degrees, but with the combo of Trek's Minnow Link plus the included 1 degree offset headset cups, you can tweak your geometry as needed. Head tube angles can go from a super slack 62 degrees all the way up to 64.5 degrees for those wanting something a little bit steeper. Additionally, bottom bracket height can be tweaked by as much as 8 millimeters. Chainstay length is adjustable between 445 and 446 millimeters depending on your orientation of the Minnow Link. Alright, now let's get on to the one everyone's been waiting for, the Deuce 9er, the Session 2.9 Carbon. That's right, 29-inch wheel downhill bikes are here for the masses, and Trek could be considered the biggest reason why. There's been experimentation with 29ers in downhill for years, but up until now, the complete package, forks, tires, and wheels, hasn't been available. And the bikes from 5 to 10 years ago were generally a lot more compact than the stretched out downhill race machines that we see today, so the wheel size didn't really fit the makeup of the frames. Trek saw the potential for 29ers in downhill and began working closely with Fox to make sure suspension on the front end wasn't going to be compromised. Trek carefully tested 29-inch downhill wheels with modified 180mm travel 27.5 Fox 40 forks. The data gained from these testing sessions opened the eyes of both Trek and Fox, and the 29-inch specific Fox 40 came to life. Now, the Santa Cruz Syndicate was the first team to show up to the races with these forks. They had them called the 49s, kind of a little take on it. People were confused about the stanchion diameter, but it was for a 29-inch wheel in a Fox 40. But there's no doubt that it was Trek's push that excited Fox to get the product rolling. Now we're seeing the snowball effect across World Cup DH teams that have access to the Fox 29 or 40. We're hearing rumors of RockShox coming along too, but right now it seems like Fox is the one that's ahead of the game. All right, but what about handling? 29ers can't corner, right? They're gonna be slower in the corners. Trek gathered data from over 100 runs of downhill testing across various riders. They use data acquisition equipment and LitPro software to monitor speeds on every section of a variety of test tracks. The software provides side-by-side views of runs on each wheel size. And it was no surprise that the 29-inch wheel shined in the rougher, straighter sections. But eyes were open when the data showed that the cornering speeds were also the same, if not faster, on the big wheels. Trek's Jose Gonzalez noted that he and testers just felt that the 27 5-inch wheeled bikes felt busier in the corners, while the 29er felt more calm. When compiled all together, all those test runs indicated that the 29er was 4 to 6% faster from top to bottom, and there wasn't a single section in which the 29 was slower. The testers and data report that the big wheels provide more traction, so braking can be done later, cornering speeds can be higher, and exit momentum greater. That all adds up to a faster top to bottom run. Additionally, what Trek points out is that the bottom bracket height of the 27.5 and the 29 are basically the same relative to ground. But the bottom bracket drop between the two bikes is considerably different because of the wheel size and axle height. This means the 29 rider sits lower in the bike and actually has more leverage and input when leaning the bike over in a corner. Combine the stability, traction with the body position, and the 29er does it all better on paper and according to those who've ridden it. The Session 2.9's wheelbase is less than a centimeter longer than the 2.75. This minute change allowed Trek to use the 27.5 carbon front end, only having to develop a 29er specific rear triangle and swing link, keeping costs manageable for both development and consumers in the end. During development, they took note that the rear wheel position at bottom out in relation to the saddle is in nearly the same place as on the 27.5. So their experience with tire buzz seems to contradict what a lot of internet users are calling a design flaw. Trek did note, however, that in hard angled cornering, a rider may buzz their upper inner thigh with the side of the tire because of the big wheel. So you lean it in, you might buzz your leg. So who's the Session 2.9er customer? Good question. Obviously not those who are going to comment and say 26 for life. Come on, we had to do it. We had to say that, didn't we? The 29 customer is going to be a hardcore racer who embraces the potential of the wheel size. Park riders wanting to flick and whip will still want to stick to the 27.5, no doubt. Trek understands that wheels and tires are still the weak point in the equation for publicly available 29er downhill products. That's why they're offering only a frame, fork, and rear shock package. They believe the early adopters to the technology will be serious enough about the bike to fill in any gaps required to get a race machine on the track and ripping. Unfortunately, ATHERTON's injury prevents him from racing the Fort William World Cup in a couple days, but we may see Trek World Racing's Graham Mudd on the 2.9 machine at Fort William. For now, Rachel Atherton is sticking to her 27.5 session, but that may not be for long. We'll see, only time can tell. Check out more specs at vitalmtb.com or hit up Trek Bikes for the goods. If you like this shirt and you like this hat, hit up the Vital MTB store too. It's a sweet time for downhilling. Fort William's gonna be nuts, off the chain.